Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is summer camp. It's summertime, and that means camp time. But while we think about campfires and archery, swimming and sports, some camps think firing ranges, rocketry. Summer camp for Palestinian children is nothing at all like camps in the Poconos or the Catskills. Camps for kids in Gaza and the West Bank are training grounds for future terrorists. Yes, they have water sports, but they also train in bomb making, sharpshooting, and terror activities. These kids crawl under live ammo fire and jump through rings of fire. Not that they don't have a drama club in these camps, they do, but it comes with a special Palestinian twist, a Hamas twist. Forget The Lion King and Les Mis. These performances are much more nitty-gritty. A few years ago, I was at a summer camp graduation where Palestinian kids attending the camp, aged 10, 12, 14-year-old boys and girls, put on a special performance. They enacted a kidnapping of an Israeli general. They grabbed him from his car and then took him away. The crowd cheered. This was near Ramallah, not an ISIS training center at all. Daily activities in these camps, come terrorist training centers, often include making believe that the campers are Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. They play act where one camper is the Palestinian prisoner and the other is the Israeli interrogator. Of course, the game and the performance always has the same ending. The Palestinian is freed and kills the Israeli and then starts a revolt that frees Islam. These camps are sponsored both by the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and by Hamas. There is very little difference between these camps. According to Palestinian Media Watch, a recent graduation ceremony of a summer camp in the West Bank involved more than 150 students. The audience was composed of hundreds of family members. High-level PA officials were in attendance. Nablus Director Governor Akram Rajoub, Secretary of Fatah's Nablus branch, Jihad Ramadan, that's a great name, Jihad Ramadan, and representatives of the PA National Security Forces were all there. This particular camp was for children of martyrs. Martyrs are terrorists or those killed by Israel, and the children of prisoners. The theme of the summer camp was summed up in the name of the camp. It was Jerusalem in the eyes of the lion cubs and flowers of Palestine. Lion cubs are boys, flowers of Palestine are girls. Sponsored by the PA president, Mahmoud Abbas, and his Fatah party, the camp was set up to celebrate the heroism of the campers' parents. The graduation ceremony is de rigueur in Palestinian summer camps. This one was broadcast on Fatah TV, which is where I saw it. And as is the case with all these camps, the finale of the graduation celebration is a parade. The campers all march wearing matching clothing. Remembering your old camp t-shirts with the logo placed over your heart? Think again. These kids were all in fatigues. The older kids marched with real weapons slung over their shoulders and in their arms, most of them AK-47s. The younger campers strutted with toy weapons. Just watch these videos. See for yourself.
إذن زهرات وأشبال في ريعان الطفولة وبأعمار الزهور يتمسكون بحق العودة في مخيمات جيل العودة، ناظرين جل أنظارهم نحو القدس ونحو فلسطين المحتلة، أملنا فيهم بأن يحرروا أوطاننا ويحرروا فلسطين كامل تراب فلسطين.
Gaza City is in the midst of bombing, war and destruction. In this environment, children will obviously feel angry and under pressure, so there has to be a space for entertainment. There's no tough treatment. If a child is unable to do one of the obstacles, he can play somewhere else. They're happy to take on these obstacles.
We advertise with flyers that reach their homes, posters on the streets, the mosques and schools. Everybody knows about it and registers at the nearest camp.
The camp is part of a larger movement called Lion Cubs and Flowers of Palestine. This is a traditional summer camp in name only. It is a place of indoctrination. It's where Palestinian children, starting at a very young age, are inculcated to hate. The PA and Hamas are using summer camps to teach, to train, and produce future terrorist leaders. Camp directors are not celebrating independence. They're not embracing the land or culture. They're not discussing great challenges, past, present, or future, and the need to create a new and build new dynamic Palestinian society. What they do is teach, preach, and emphasize the need to destroy Israel. The campers are taught on a daily basis, activity by activity, performance after performance, and song after song, that by destroying Israel, they will achieve their dream. Palestinian leadership has not yet realized that Israel is here to stay. They focus on their hatred of the Jewish state and miss the perfect opportunity to teach their children how to build a better future. It is easier for Palestinian leadership to shout that it is easier to destroy than to build. It is much easier to preach hatred than to plan for a peaceful future. For Palestinian leadership, it's all about fighting and killing and kidnapping and violence and terror. The message is sent directly from the top down, from Abbas straight to the youngest of the summer campers. For Palestinian youth, camp is always fun, even if the messages they go home with are hateful and destructive. To better illustrate my point, just the other day, there was a news piece in the New York Times. The piece was written by Isabel Kirshner, who was the staff writer in the New York Times Jerusalem Bureau. The piece is a news piece which covered fully 1/3 a page and had a graphic picture. It covered the trial of 3 Israelis charged with kidnapping and murdering of a Palestinian teenager named Abu Kedar. They burned the boy to death. It all happened last year. The Israelis claim that they acted in response to and as a result of the kidnapping of the 3 teenagers earlier last summer. The Israelis are being tried for the murder of this Palestinian boy. When did you ever hear or read about a Palestinian court bringing charges and trying a Palestinian for the killing of an Israeli? We hear about Palestinians who kill Israelis getting streets named after them and sports stadiums named after them. Actually, on my way here to this taping, there was a new news item which actually said one terrorist actually guilty of 67 murders of Israelis was just now being honored with a special television broadcast in his honor. He's now sitting in Israeli prison. We hear about Palestinians being tried for helping Israelis. Palestinians call them collaborators. They're often executed for helping the Israelis. In Israel, it is expected. Israel is a society of law with a highly developed and sophisticated system of justice. So I'm not proud that Israel is trying someone for the murder of a Palestinian. I expect it. I'm saddened that there is murder and the need to try people. But Israel is a country where the law is essential. Those who violate it are tried. That is not the case in the PA and in Gaza, not just with regard to the killing of Israelis and Jews. The PA is referred to in many circles as a kleptocracy, a society that is run by and fueled by stealing and corruption. That kind of society needs to first oust the corrupt leadership and then install an honest leadership that will institute a vision of justice. I do not see that on the horizon. Coming up next, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. First up is a column from USA Today. For the past decade, USA Today has vied for the title of most circulated paper in the US. It competes with the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. It seems now USA Today is out-circulating everyone. USA Today is distributed in all 50 states. As an aside, I get the paper in almost every single hotel I stay in. I travel frequently, and everywhere I go, the hotels give me USA Today. This column is in the opinion section in the category called Our View. It's an unsigned column of the editors. The editors have their section of the paper called editorials. Editorials are almost always against the left side of the page. This section in USA Today called Our View is where the editors express their point of view and engage with another idea. In this case, it is next to a section called Opposing View. In other words, Our View and Opposing View. And they did that somewhere else on the editorial page. The editors entitled their piece, Faltering War Against ISIL Requires a Broader Strategy. It is dated June 15th, 2015. The editors start their piece, quote, 1 year after Islamic State fighters overran Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, President Obama's effort to, quote, degrade and ultimately defeat, unquote, the group isn't going particularly well, unquote. Now, the piece is a sad assessment of the situation and says that the loss of Mosul was a disastrous defeat. It synopsizes U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter's quote by saying that the Iraqi army has, quote, no will to fight. Then the piece quotes President Obama speaking to the G7, the group of seven, that the U.S. did not, quote, yet have a complete strategy to fight ISIL. The editors say none of this inspires confidence. The piece continues by giving a prescription, and here's what it says. More important than tactics is the larger picture. This isn't just an American fight. ISIL is a more immediate threat to neighbors such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Turkey. A more robust international coalition of ISIL's enemies is indeed needed to take the fight to the extremists, not just in Iraq, but also in Syria, where ISIL's headquarters and command structure is based. And now the essay comes to a conclusion. The editors say something must be done. And here's what they say, quote, none of this is easy, and it's further complicated by Syria's civil war and Iran's support for Shiite militia within Iraq. The struggle is likely to take years, but it appears unavoidable. Allowing anti-US terrorists to establish a haven, as happened with al-Qaeda in Afghanistan before the 9/11 attacks, is a mistake America should not repeat. These editors are not just criticizing President Obama. They are hoping, or better, urging him to change policy. The second op-ed up is a column from the New York Post, and it's dated and published July 1st, 2015. The column was written by Benny Avni. The column is entitled, How to Lose Friends, Obama's Driving Allies Away. Benny Avni is a columnist for the New York Post and for Newsweek. He was a columnist for the New York Sun. He's actually an Israeli by birth. For years, his beat was the United Nations. This column is an analysis of Obama's administration's focus on Iranian talks. But the essential point that Avni brings is that the regional powers in the Middle East are not happy with the U.S. and the direction of the talks. And the kicker is that they're running to Russia to help them because they cannot trust the U.S. Avni begins his piece by the following. As America and partnering world powers toil in Vienna to turn Iran into their BFF, their best friend forever, our traditional, now jilted Arab allies are looking for love in all the wrong places. Can you blame them, though? Avni then explains that supporting Iran, all the traditional allies of the U.S. are going elsewhere for support. They're going to Russia, and Russia is all too happy to welcome them. Egypt and Saudi Arabia would prefer the dollar over the ruble and would prefer U.S. training and equipment. But in the absence of U.S. support, they're finding what they need in Russia. Avni's essay concludes, quote, we're yet to witness any reciprocation for our efforts to befriend Iran, starting with an end to Tehran's death to America chants, maybe. Meanwhile, our nuclear diplomacy, possibly culminating in an agreement this week, is a great lesson in how to lose friends and stop influencing people. Avni wants to bring our attention to the fact that there are other variables at work. The Iranians are not the only issue, and neither are the nuke talks. Primarily, our old allies, and these allies are not happy with making Iran a friend. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. We're going to talk about 3 cartoons today. The first is drawn by John Darko and was published on July 3rd, 2015. Darko was part of the Kegel Cartoon Syndicate. His home base is the Columbia Daily Tribune from Columbia, Missouri. He has been drawing for 20 years, and the last 10 have been in Missouri itself. This cartoon depicts Secretary of State John Kerry speaking to President Obama. Kerry's pants have been removed, and you could see them on the floor at the negotiation table where Iran's representative is sitting. Kerry says to Obama, "Don't worry, boss. We got them right where they want us." "Oh, have you seen my watch?" In other words, Iran has taken everything. Kerry's pants, Kerry's watch, and we are right where they want us to be. A truly hilarious and sad commentary. The next cartoon is by Gary Varvel. It was published on July 5th, 2015. Varvel is part of the Creators Syndicate. He draws for the Indianapolis Star. He lives there and is part-time teacher and the part-time adult Sunday school teacher in his church. This cartoon is called Shopping in the Legacy Store. In President Obama's shopping cart, as he's in the store, are already achieved items like Obamacare, gay marriage, which says on the packaging, SCOTUS approved. SCOTUS is the Supreme Court of the United States. SCOTUS approved. Wars end with a red warning sticker, says ISIS included. Iranian deal. And on the shelf is record debt and Palestinian state with a sticker say assembly required. This cartoon is not a critique as much as it is a description of the Obama legacy. The cartoon shows Obama and his presidency and his newly attained legacy granted by the approval of the Supreme Court. The final cartoon is a sad commentary. The cartoon is by Bill Day and was published in July. Day has seen his share of controversy. His cartoon on gun control is either famous or infamous, depending on which side you're on. This cartoon depicts 2 characters, an ISIS member and a KKK member. Both are wearing uniforms. Both are holding flags, the ISIS flag and the Confederate flag. The cartoon asks a question with a big Q, as in question, and a colon. The question is, what 2 terrorist groups claiming to be religious wear masks to do evil acts? Question mark. The answer under the big A is the picture. And the picture is a picture of an ISIS member and a KKK member, both wearing masks and hoods. This cartoon is obviously drawing a parallel between evil groups who claim to act as believers, but instead cover their heads to perpetrate evil. In a moment, my own perspective and a few predictions. It's been exactly 1 year since ISIS proclaimed themselves a state. The U.S. Department of Defense announced that ISIS is a formidable foe. It took them a whole year to get that far. They say this despite the fact that ISIS has lost 25% of the land that was under their control at the heyday of their rise to power. The Department of Defense is realizing that ISIS is no longer a junior varsity player. Now the DoD must devise a serious strategy that will put more pressure on ISIS and eventually eradicate them entirely. That is not an easy task. You see, ISIS has a plan. Now the U.S. needs a plan too. ISIS has announced that they're plotting to remove Hamas from power in Gaza. ISIS posted a video on YouTube of a masked man addressing the tyrants of Hamas, in other words, Hamas itself, saying, quote, "We will uproot the state of the Jews, Israel, and you and Fatah and all of the secularists are nothing, and you will be all overrun. You will be overrun by our creeping multitudes." Creeping multitudes is an important term here. He continued, "The rule of Sharia, which is Islamic law, will be implemented in Gaza in spite of you. We swear that what is happening in the Levant today, and in particular in Yarmouk, in the Yarmouk camp, will happen in Gaza." The speaker said that after all this time, Hamas has not succeeded in applying any Islamic law in Gaza. And now Hamas are clamping down on groups attacking Israel. In the eyes of ISIS, this is definitely not a good thing to be doing. So ISIS wants to topple Hamas because, in their eyes, Hamas is simply too liberal. Also in Jordan, newspapers are reporting that a major terror attack was averted. The authorities arrested a man with Iraqi and Norwegian citizenship who was in possession of 45 kilos, that's 100 pounds of explosives. The media says that this attack would have been the worst terror attack in a decade in Jordan. The terrorist is believed to belong to a group called Bait al-Maqdis. This is a common name for many terror groups, but all of the groups with this name are not necessarily connected to each other. Bait al-Maqdis, by the way, is another name in Arabic for the city of Jerusalem. Bait al-Maqdis means the Temple Mount. The discovery of this group is very important, and not because it would save lives. Of course, because it would save lives. Much more. Finding this man and his group will lead authorities on a path to discovery of other terror cells and arms and explosive suppliers. This is a big step in the fight against ISIS in Jordan. Other groups taking hold in Jordan and in the region itself hopefully will be stymied by this. One more thought, this one about Europe and ISIS. Europe just may be slowly waking up, and I repeat, slowly waking up. The European Union prosecutor held a special press conference recently to inform journalists that ISIS is using ships not only to smuggle in people, but also to secretly smuggle in ISIS members into Europe. Journalists were told that ISIS is earning money smuggling people. ISIS is smuggling illegals across the Mediterranean into Europe itself. Now, obviously, the ISIS members are entering Europe to organize, raise money, and recruit. They were also there to motivate and plan attacks. Eurojust is an EU agency that tries to coordinate with EU members on issues of terror, cybercrime, and illegal immigration. According to the Associated Press, the director of Eurojust, Michelle Konix, has information about ISIS and their smuggling operation. She did not want to reveal too much information, but made it perfectly clear that it is happening. But I find it interesting that, according to the coverage, EU leadership did not want to venture a hypothesis as to why ISIS is smuggling their people into Europe. The answer should be clear. ISIS wants to attack Europe. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one picante piece of information. We've been talking about summers and summer camps. So I thought it would be interesting to describe the Borscht Belt, the Catskills. Did you know that the Borscht Belt is a play on words? It was a play on the Bible Belt, only this belt was for Jews. Often it was referred to as the mountains, or in jest, Solomon's County, because most of the density was in Sullivan County in upstate New York. It began in the very last decade of the 1800s, when the Grossinger family purchased a farm there, and then they started inviting people up from the city to spend time. It turned into an inn, and then a phenomenon. In 1913, they opened a place for people to stay. Many hotels and bungalows opened as well, as Jewish summer camps sprung up all over the place. Bungalows started as kuchelanes, from the Yiddish expression to cook alone, kuch allein. Allein is alone, kuch is to cook. Where in a bungalow, it was really the opposite. You rented a room, but you shared a kitchen, as opposed to cooking alone itself. The Borscht Belt influenced America. Comedy as we know it emerged from there. All the greats had to pay their dues in the Borscht Belt. Political humor, as we know it, began there. There is not a single element of comedy today in America that did not have its roots in the Borscht Belt. What a great legacy. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.